Hey, how you doing? Nope, my name's not Harold. I'm the lawnmower lady, and I like fixing small engines. Today we're going to do a little tune-up on a little Briggs Stratton mower. Needs an oil change, check the spark plug, air filter. It's having trouble staying running, according to the guy that owns it, so we're going to go through it and make it work. Okay, so today's mower is a Bolens 20-inch little trim mower with a 4.5 Briggs Stratton engine. This is the newer style that has the nylon carburetor on there. The model number is there's the model. I think it's a MT. Looks like it's made by MTD. And it's pretty dirty, so we're going to get this thing hosed off and cleaned up, and we'll come back in and start working on a tune-up. Okay, now that we have this machine hosed off, we're going to go ahead and check the oil first before we get it back up on the lift to do everything else. On this particular mower, the oil filler cap is this little guy right here, and if it doesn't come off easily, okay, you can also put a screwdriver in there very lightly to help it untwist, and then that's how you remove this oil cap. Alright, so we're going to check the oil, see how bad it looks. Alright, so we'll be checking this oil, and yeah, it's kind of dirty. We'll be changing it out anyway, and I think it's overfilled. In these particular machines, you do need to screw it all the way in and out, and then yeah, it's hard to see, but it's over the fill line, so that means this might be part of the reason it's having so much trouble running. The air filter might be completely clogged up, which I suppose it is. Yeah, it's overfilled. Alright, so we're going to flip this little guy over and hope we don't spill too much. That's why I got this metal sheet down here. It's got over. I think it's just overfilled. So someone much wiser than me said it's better to have the right amount of the wrong oil than the wrong amount of the right oil. I've always taken that to heart, so I always use an older container. It's got a wider mouth, so it's easy to fill up. And I have a mark on here for 20 ounces. Most of these mowers, smaller engines, take about 20 ounces. And you want to check your owner's manual, but that's where I start. Use a funnel and pour it in. Got to go kind of slow sometimes so it doesn't overflow. I'm going to put the entire 20 ounces in. The residual that stays in the engine will usually cover whatever additional I need. Alright, so there we go. Let that drain in. Screw in the dipstick. Check our oil level. On these particular mowers, you do need to screw the dipstick all the way in. On Honda mowers, you do not. Alright, screw it in. I'm going to pull it out, and you want to see the oil, and it's really hard to see because it's so clean, but it is just at the arrow. I know it's hard to see. Make sure that's snug, not too tight, but you don't want it to fly off. Alright, moving on to the spark plug. This particular mower uses a 5/8 inch spark plug socket or a 16 millimeter, and these are two specialized spark plug sockets. One of them has a rubber boot in there, and that will help prevent you from breaking off the ceramic part. This one has a magnetic. I prefer the magnetic ones because sometimes the rubber boot actually gets stuck on the ceramic and it's hard to get off. But put that on there, make sure it's good and tight. and with our wrench, loosen that up. Shouldn't be too tight. And then we're going to have a look at the spark plug. Alright, as you can see, this spark plug is really shiny. I think that's gasoline. Might have been gasoline from it being on its side. We can confirm that. Yeah, I think there's a little bit of gasoline coming out of there, but it doesn't look like oil. And this particular spark plug actually looks pretty good. If you want to clean these up, you can use like a brush, a nylon brush or something, but you want to make sure you don't leave any filings or anything inside that plug. But I think this plug's alright. Okay, this spark plug really wasn't too bad. I did brush it up just a little bit with a little soft wire brush, made sure it didn't get any in there. What you're looking for is if it's all black, if it's all sooty, or if it's all bright white in there. Those are problems. But then the next thing you want to do is check the gap on your plug. You can use this little tool, spark plug gapper. You see it has a sort of a really thin edge, and as it goes around and around, it gets thicker and thicker. Or you can use a set of feeler gauges, okay? And they're all varying thicknesses, but the one we want is 0.030 inches or 0.75 millimeters. That's pretty standard on most these small engines spark plugs. The way this one works is you run it up there and see where it stops, and see it stops at about 0.030 inches. All right, and if it's too tight or too small, you can, you know, push it further in to open it up. If you get it too big or too small, you can put this end of the tool in it and sort of like raise up on it. If it's too big, you can like tap it on a piece of wood, something like that. But anyway, this is how you gap the plug. I just took the feeler gauge out completely because I always use the same size. And what you're looking for is it just wants to be snug. It wants to fit in there between the two electrodes, and you want to make sure there's no gunk in there. And if you don't have any feeler gauges, or you don't want to go get one of these little guys from the auto parts store, a Stanley knife, the thick part of a Stanley knife blade is 0.030 inches. Put that in there. Perfect. Okay, so now that our spark plug is clean and gapped, we're going to put it back in, the threaded hole in there. You always want to start it by hand. Don't ever use a tool, and make sure it's threading on. All right, and you want to go all the way in by hand until it bottoms out. And then you want to put your spark plug wrench on there. Make sure it's bottomed out, and then go no more than 1/4 of a turn. And that spark plug is good to go. Be sure and put the boot back on, because as soon as we check the air filter and the carb, we'll be firing this up. Okay, so this air filter is as suspected, really, really dirty. It has got a lot of oil in it, I think probably from being overfilled. The inside of that is got a lot of dirt in there. This air filter is just completely gagged up. I usually take some old bad gasoline and I'll clean all this up there with gasoline. And you can wash these and clean these. It's just not worth my time to do that. So I always have new ones ready to go. But you see the plug where that goes in, it's just completely gagged up there. So we'll get all this cleaned up, and I'll show you a little something about these filters. Okay, so there's several different types of very common foam air filters that go on these Briggs Stratton engines. I'm going to tell you the difference between these. This is the dirty one that I just took out, okay? I'm not going to clean this. I'll do a video one day of how to clean these guys, but this is one that came out of a mower that's actually been cleaned up, so I could use that, but I'm going to put a new one in. Different kinds. There's this green foam filter. That's for the older style that have the air box on top of the mower, and this would be for a metal air box. This is the newer version for a plastic air box, and this is the type that we're going to be using, and I'll show you how to prep the filter to put it in. So if your lawnmower has one of these types of foam filters, you do need to add a little bit of oil to it. Any oil, motor oil will do, but you don't want to saturate it. You want it to be just a little film so it's a little tacky, and it'll help catch that dust that comes in. So I just use an oil can, just put a few drops on there on each side and around the edges and on the back side as well. And I put it in a little sandwich baggie, and I use that so my hands don't get too dirty, and I just rub that around and rub it around until all that oil is inside of there. And when you take it out, you can feel just a little bit of oil on there, but it's not drippy oily. All right? And so I actually always have one ready to go because I go through so many of these. And this one I just pulled out of this bag. So this will be ready to go for the next mower I get. But this one, like I said, really light, sort of tacky feel, not drippy oil, but that's the way you want that to be. All right, as you can see, I've cleaned out all the dust and dirt that was in there that was accumulated. I use old gasoline that I haven't taken to the recycling center yet, and then I hit it with a air compressor dryer. If you don't have that, you can use a toothbrush, old gasoline, or just a little splash of good gasoline. Use a rag, get that just as clean as you can, and then the new air filter goes on. You notice the hole isn't completely centered, so you want to make sure that goes right around the hole, and the filter is centered in there. There are two tangs that hook in the bottom right there, and then you snap it closed. What you really want to make sure of when you clean out is this is really where the intake side is, and that's where you want to make sure that's all completely clean right there. All right, one of the last things I do when I'm tuning up a lawnmower is I lubricate the cables that run the brake. I used a product called Tri-Flow. All the bicycle guys use that on their cables, but I will spray a little bit in the top right here where the bail cable goes in, because you operate the bail, it's kind of tight under a lot of pressure, and I'll also spray some in at the engine end right there. Don't ever know where these lawnmowers get stored. If it's stored outside or under a deck, it might be susceptible to having water and rain run into that cable, and then the cable will eventually rust and it fills up, and then right in that bottom bend is where the cable usually breaks. Alright, so we're ready to start up this little mower here. As it turned out, there was actually gasoline in the tank. Water in the tank. I know there's gasoline in there, but I didn't realize how much water was in there. I got hung up on the fact that the breather tube wasn't hooked up, thinking that's how water was getting there, but obviously just some bad gas from a gas can had a lot of water in it. This was the second time. You can see very little gasoline. This came out of the carburetor, and after I drained the rest of the tank, you can see that water underneath there. Water is heavier than gasoline, so it always sinks to the bottom. So anyway, let's fire this up and see how it goes. Not bad. Alright, so there you have it. Tune up on a little Briggs & Stratton. Hope you learned something. I did. If you liked the video, please push the like and subscribe button so I can make more of these videos. Thanks for watching. I'm the Lawnmower Lady, and as I like to say, mow happy.